come right out and say this. In California, it's actually learning this the hard way right now. Some positions just aren't worth $20 an hour. In the wake of raising its minimum wage for the fast food workers, $20 an hour is what you have to pay these people now. Businesses closed. People were laid off, and instantly things became more expensive. I mean, who could have possibly seen that coming? Oh, literally everyone. In fact, there was a study done on this a while ago that never made its way to Gavin Newsom's desk, citing a New Jersey minimum wage hike on April 1st, 1992. Now, New Jersey's minimum wage rose from $4.25 to $5.05 overnight, and guess what happened? Fast food and payroll records showed that fast food employment fell with each 10% increase in the minimum wage, reducing employment by nearly 2% each time. Now, California just raised their minimum wage by 25%. They had even more layoffs. Can you imagine the audacity of a business for firing someone who costs too much to operate? Or worse, can you imagine passing the cost of additional government mandates onto consumers? I mean, say it ain't so. Now, this is what they have to do to survive. Obviously, Biden has no idea about economic reasoning. He just cost everybody in the country the equivalent of almost a 20% tax increase because of his inflation. And California, being the epicenter of progressive policies and bad ideas, has embraced every single minute of this. They've even doubled down with more stupid policies like high taxes and other sneaky ways to bleed their citizens' bank accounts dry. And they wonder why people are leaving the state. Now, because of those policies, everything costs more. And now Gavin Newsom took it upon himself in an attempt to legislate his people into prosperity, which has never worked in the history of ever. But he's going to give it another college try. On April 1st, California raised the minimum wage to $20 an hour. Now, zero people who have ever owned a business are shocked by this, but businesses made cuts and passed some added cost on to customers. Weird, right? Hart House and In-N-Out Burger, Burger King, they all saw immediate price increases for the mandated 25% raise in minimum wages overnight. Now, look, if you went to Burger King for a double Whopper on March 29th, it would have cost you $15.09, which is still super high for fast food. But if you went on April 1st, it was up 12%, almost $17. The fish sandwich, which I'm never going to eat, but that went from $7.50 to $11.50. That's up 50%. Many companies also fired employees or closed down altogether. They had a bunch of these interviews after this happened. And I don't know why this is so hard to understand for people like Gavin Newsom, but there's only so much money in an economy. You can't legislate people into having more money. When prices go up, people will buy less, whether it's food or whatever. Those fast food places are now going to see a decrease in business. They already have. And you just made them pay their employees more, so they have to lay them off. That's the reality of these policies. Democrats everywhere really just don't understand this. It comes down to, would you rather have 100 people working and employed at $15 an hour, like you did in March, or would you rather have 75 people employed at $20 an hour? And products now cost more. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I'm sure if you ask some of the 25% of people in this industry who lost their job because of this, I'm sure they'd say, yeah, I'd rather make $15 an hour than $0 an hour. But this comes down to what I said in the beginning. Some positions just aren't worth $20 an hour. Maybe because they lack the skill set or the experience or even intelligence. Sorry, not sorry, but this is Econ 101. Businesses can only hire people who add value. If an employee, let's just say employee A flips 100 burgers an hour in March, does he flip 125 burgers in April? And is that established even selling the additional 25 burgers an hour? No. Then that employee is not worth 25% more an hour. There's not one study that shows that raising the minimum wage helps poor people. There just isn't. I subscribe to having no minimum wage at all, actually, but bear with me here. Minimum wage was never supposed to be long-term wage. By raising it as high as California did, though, it made it it's a very stagnant, much more stagnant wage. People are going to stay at that pay rate for much, much longer. Also, it's basically been ensured that there's less entry-level jobs for unskilled workers, particularly in younger generations. Look, when I was in high school, how many of you had a high school job? I did. I was paid like $5 an hour to stock paint shelves. Whatever the minimum wage was is what I was paid. Now, that business never would have hired me if it had to cost them $20 an hour. I would have never acquired the skills I did in that first year, and I would have never become able to be a more valued employee in the workplace. But what did happen was the next summer, being that I had the job the previous summer, I gathered the experience that I did while getting minimum wage. The owner voluntarily paid me over 30% more the next year because I contributed that much more to the company based on a skill set. Now keep in mind, California has already some of the highest prices in the nation. And they also, beautiful country, beautiful state. They have all these resources and they just squander it. They have all these high prices, which is what Gavin Newsom is using as a justification for this whole cabal, by the way. I mean, who here would like to know why? Because the regulation is so burdensome, taxes are so high, and crime is rampant to such an extent, and we haven't seen this before, but these businesses are actually having to build in a theft loss into their pricing model. Everything is more expensive because of that, because they don't enforce the crime or the laws. But here's the bigger question, like Gavin Newsom should ask. $20 an hour is what is required to have a livable wage, according to him and his administration in that state. So why do you only allow plumbers to be paid $15 for minimum wage? Electricians, $12 an hour. Truckers, $15 an hour. When I was fresh into the military, stationed in California, I was making the equivalent of $13 an hour, by the way. $3 an hour, by the way. That number hasn't gone up much now. It's like $5 now if you really factor in all the things. Do those folks not need to make a livable wage either? Do those professions not typically vote Democrat? I don't know. I'm just asking. It also bears the question. Teachers in California start at $24 an hour. Cops, $26 an hour. We know Gavin Newsom doesn't like them. But I happen to think those jobs require more qualifications than working at a fast food joint. They certainly require much more education than any of the fast food industry. So how do you justify that? But I'll leave you with this, Gavin. I realize you somehow took one of the most resource-rich states, like I just mentioned. I mean, in America, you guys have everything. You have oil, natural resources, minerals, everything. And in 2 years, you somehow, nobody knows how you did this, you went from a $90 billion surplus to a $50 billion deficit. But if the $20 number is the magic number for working 40 hours a week, that's $3,200 a month. If that's what you need to survive, why are you not helping those on Social Security, where the average payment in your state is just under $1,900 a month? Do you not care about old people? You see how slippery this slope gets real fast?